It is April 15th, 2023. If you live in Sudan, this would be your reality. And if you're turned on the TV, this is what you would see. The reality is, for many, there is no more electricity, no running water, and no more law. The streets are filled with the military, armed robbers, and the sound of bullets. The constant fear of planes dropping bombs as you struggle to go about your daily lives. This is the harsh reality of life in Khartoum since April 15th, 2023. In this video, I will try to make sense of what is going on in Sudan. Before I even start, let me clarify something. I will not be able to give justice to all the facts in a simple 15 minutes video. But either way, I created this channel to talk about my continent, so it is important to share the information I found. Around 4 years from today, in April 2019, Sudan lived its first coup in a very long time. After 30 years of dictatorial regime, Omar Al-Bashir was put in prison by two of his own generals. The two generals in question were personally groomed by the dictator for more than 2 decades. But after massive protests all over the country, these two loyal military generals took advantage of the unrest and decided to take the country under their own leadership. To the people protesting and the international community, the generals promised democracy and a fair transition. The only thing they asked in return was full control of the country until November 2021. But on October 2021, 1 month before the deadline, they had a change of mind. The two generals decided to stage another coup. This time they wanted to stay in power. With no more deadlines, they didn't allow protests and jailed all the political opposition. There were now only 2 rulers in Sudan, the new president called Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his vice president called Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, aka Hemeti. In only 2 years, these two men, al-Burhan and Hemeti, are at the root of 2 military coups. 2 army generals that have grown in power over the last 20 years are now fighting against each other and at the origin of the current violence and chaos we are seeing in Sudan today. On one side, you have al-Burhan, leader of the Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF. They are the ones with the planes. On the other side, you have Hemeti, leader of the RSF, standing for Rapid Support Forces. They are the one with the infantry, over 100,000 soldiers. In this video, we will explore the different factions and actors involved in this conflict, give the historical context that led to the coups, and give an update on the current situation in the capital Khartoum, the city where both sides are fighting for control of key buildings. This is only my 7th video on YouTube, so I know I will not be able to give full justice to this subject. The conflict is ongoing, and many of the details are still blurry. If you want to know more, don't hesitate to talk in the comments. I will make sure to send my resources to anyone with questions. I decided to divide this video in 5 chapters. 1. The history, providing some historical and political background on Sudan. 2 and 3. The men behind the conflict. We will get to know al-Burhan and Hemeti better. 4. The allies. We will get to know the countries allied to both generals. 5. Khartoum. We will take a look at the current situation in Khartoum in May 2023. If you find this video informative and thought-provoking, please don't forget to hit the like button. Let's get to it. Historical and political background. Sudan is a country located in northeastern Africa that gained independence from Britain in 1956. Since then, Sudan has passed through 6 successful coups and 5 failed coups attempts in only 65 years. The country also struggled with conflicts between the Arab-dominated government and non-Arab rebels. Before Omar Al-Bashir seized power in Sudan through the military coup in 1989, he served in the Sudanese armed forces for over 2 decades. He joined the military in 1960 and was commissioned as an officer in 1966. He also received military training in Egypt and the United Kingdom. In 1989, a military coup led by Omar Al-Bashir brought him to power, where he ruled the country with an iron fist for 30 years. During his reign, al-Bashir was known for his brutal tactics, including the use of paramilitary forces and support from militias that targeted civilians. He was also known for his close relationship with the military, particularly the soldiers who served under him in the past. His favorite general in Darfur, for example, was Hemedti from the paramilitary group Janjaweed. This militia later renamed itself for RSF. While in power, al-Bashir implemented policies that favored Arabization and Islamization of the country, which led to tensions with non-Arab and non-Muslim groups, ultimately culminating in the separation and independence of South Sudan in 2011. Al-Bashir faced international condemnation for his human rights abuses, particularly in Darfur, where the government was accused of carrying out a genocide against non-Arab tribes. He was even indicted as a war criminal by the ICC on July 12, 2010. Al-Bashir's relationship with his generals was complex. While he relied heavily on them to maintain his grip on power, he was also known for making them fight against each other. He also frequently purged those he perceived as threats. In fact, the military generals that overthrew al-Bashir in 2019 were once very close to him. This underscores the unpredictable nature of Sudanese politics. Two generals that al-Bashir pinned one against the other to balance his own position ended up partnering, throwing him in jail to take full control of the country. Overall, Sudan's political history has been marked by authoritarianism, military coups, and ethnic tensions. Al-Bashir's removal from power was celebrated around the world and raised hopes for a democratic transition, with the creation of a transitional military council. To understand what is coming next, I feel it is important to talk about a term commonly used when a dictator dies or is removed from power. The term is a power vacuum. The best definition I found is the following. A power vacuum is a situation that occurs when a leader or government is suddenly removed, leaving a void in power and authority. This can lead to chaos, instability, and competition among different groups to fill the gap. In the case of Sudan, the power vacuum was created when the military ousted Omar Al-Bashir in a coup, leaving a void in power that has led to violences and the instability we are seeing today in the country. The two competing factions, the army and RSF, are struggling to establish control and restore order. This has led to clashes and a deteriorating humanitarian situation for the people of Sudan. Now let's get to know the men at the center of this conflict. Mr. Al-Burhan, leader of the army, also known as the SAF, and Mr. Hemedti, head of the RSF. Let's start with the latter. Mr. Hemedti is leader of the RSF. General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemedti, is a Sudanese military commander and politician. He is a former camel farmer from the Darfur region. General Hemedti was used by the dictator al-Bashir during the war against the rebels in this vast southwestern region of Darfur. The Janjaweed was his first military group. Janjaweed was a militia in Sudan. Mainly composed of Arab nomads, the group gained notoriety for their involvement in the Darfur conflict in the early 2000s. The Janjaweed militia were accused of committing various atrocities against civilians. The group has since been integrated into the Sudanese military and is now known as the RSF. Hemedti became a key figure in the Rapid Support Forces, the same group that became notorious for committing human rights abuses. After the ousting of former President Omar Al-Bashir in April 2019, Hemedti was appointed as the deputy head of Sudan's Transitional Military Council. Essentially, Hemedti became vice president of Sudan. He was also the highest commander of the RSF. Now, let's get to know Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, general of the Sudan Armed Force and the de facto ruler of Sudan. Abdel Fattah al-Burhan is a Sudanese military officer who currently serves as the chairman of the Sovereignty Council of Sudan. This is a transitional government established in August 2019 following the ousting of former President al-Bashir. Al-Burhan played a prominent role in the Sudanese military throughout his career, rising through the ranks and serving in various leadership positions. He was appointed as the head of the Transitional Military Council and later became the chairman of the Sovereignty Council as part of a power-sharing agreement with the Forces for Freedom and Change coalition. Under al-Burhan's leadership, Sudan has been in a state of political transition and upheaval, with ongoing conflicts and a fragile economy. For this next chapter, I wanted to look at the countries that are behind each generals, beginning with the allies of Hemeti, specifically Russia, the Emirates, and Eritrea. Russia and Sudan have had a long-standing relationship dating back to the Cold War era, when Sudan was a strategic ally in the region. In recent years, Russia has increased its presence in Sudan through military and economic agreements. In 2019, Russia signed a deal with Sudan to establish a naval base on the Red Sea, providing access to important trade routes. Russia has also been involved in the conflict in Sudan by supplying weapons to the government forces. Negotiations for the naval base had begun under the dictator Omar Al-Bashir. Mr. Al-Bashir had committed to the Russians as early as 2017 to promote the construction of the site. The Sudanese had even visited Moscow in November 2017. Some analysts argue that Russia's interest in Sudan is part of a broader strategy to increase its influence in Africa and challenge Western powers. However, others argue that Russia's engagement in Sudan is driven by economic interests, particularly in the country's mining sectors. Another country that has come out in support of the RSF boss is Eritrea. In March, Hemeti visited Isaias Afewerki. The two seem to have a close friendship. Hemeti also has the support of the United Arab Emirates, as its forces, the RSF, fought by the thousands in Yemen in 2016. Alongside the Saudi and Emirati-led coalition, they fought against the Houthi rebels. In recent events, the Sudanese army, the side of al-Burhan, published a video showing ammunition seized from rapid support forces. These were 120 mm thermobaric shells with UT-M18 fuses, produced by Serbia and initially sold to the Emirati army. On the other hand, the allies of al-Burhan are most of the Western community, and especially the United States of America. The relationship between the USA and Sudan has been strained over the years due to various factors. Sudan was listed by the US government as a state sponsor of terrorism in 1993 and was subjected to economic sanctions for over 2 decades. However, in 2017, the US lifted some of the economic sanctions on Sudan after it made some progress in combating terrorism and improved humanitarian access. The US also played a key role in negotiating the peace agreement between Sudan and South Sudan in 2005. In the current situation of the power vacuum and ongoing war in Sudan, the US has expressed concern and called for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey are very likely to support al-Burhan. The Saudi Crown Prince aims to make the Red Sea coast the center of his Vision 2030 project. So now that we understand this, let's see how the situation is unfolding in the capital city of Sudan, Khartoum. Everything started on October 25th, 2021, when the two generals came to power after their last coup. Pro-democracy demonstrations and calls for civil disobedience did not stop them. On December 5th, 2022, the two warlords finally agreed, under pressure from the African Union and the United States, to sign a preliminary agreement to turn the page on the coup, described as a mistake by Hemeti himself. Al-Burhan and Hemeti promised to work together, and the RSF was supposed to get fully integrated into the army. This would mean Hemeti would lose his soldiers, his leverage, his power. Tensions quickly crystallized over the integration of the militia into the regular army. Finally, at a meeting in late March 2023 in Khartoum, discussions broke down and the main parties left the room before the end of the session. This was the breaking point. The talks had stalled over the many technical obstacles to assimilating the militia, which has the same amount of ground power as the army. This explains why neither side has yet gained the upper hand in what is looking more and more like a civil war. Officers working under Hemeti's control are paid 5 times more than those working for the regular army. But the Islamists Al-Burhan's main allies, would not let Hemeti impose his conditions. Deep down, they despised him. They hate his origins, his background as a camel farmer, and his lack of academic training. Now we are back to April 15th, 2023. The fight starts in Khartoum. Both sides try to take each other bases in the city. The SAF base is here, close to the airport. On the other side of the city, the RSF base is around here, in the neighborhood at the top left of the map. Both sides tried to take control of the airport located here. They also fought for control of the presidential palace located here. Take a look at the evolution of the fighting over the past few days. The fight even extended to the local TV stations. On April 18th, Shams al-Din Kabashi, a spokesperson for Al-Burhan, said this: "We have confirmed information that 2 neighboring countries are providing support to the Rapid Support Forces, one of which is located in the west." He added, 2 planes delivered ammunition and supplies, which were transported to another area. There was another attempt to land a 3rd plane at Merowe Airport. Al-Burhan's spokesperson did not want to specify the identity of the 2 countries involved. However, if one is in the west, it can only be Chad, the Central African Republic, or Libya. The open warfare between Generals Al-Burhan and Hemeti since April 15th has already extended beyond Sudan's borders. Heavy gunfire has not stopped, and the Air Force regularly targets, even in the middle of Khartoum, the headquarters of the Rapid Support Forces. The 2 armies, the SAF and the RSF, are everywhere with weapons, fighting on foot to take control of the country's military and political infrastructure. The SAF said that the situation was extremely stable and that fighting was limited, while the RSF said it was on the way to definitive victory. In reality, it is impossible to know which force is controlling what. The RSF said it had taken the airport, which the SAF denied. Residents in Khartoum and many other cities in the country reported continued fighting. In some areas of Khartoum, electricity has been completely cut off, and most people do not have running water. The World Health Organization said only 16% of health facilities were functioning in Khartoum and predicted many more deaths as a result of disease and shortages of food, water, and medical services, including immunization. Each day, more territories are being contested in the city. This only means more suffering for the people on the ground. This is where we stand today. In conclusion, the power vacuum created by the 2019 coup in Sudan has had devastating effects on the country and its people. The ongoing violence and instability in Sudan are a direct result of this power struggle. The international community and African community must work together to bring peace and stability to the region. It's important to remember that the Sudanese people deserve a government that serves their best interests, not the interests of a few military leaders. We must continue to pay attention to what is happening in Sudan and support efforts to bring about a peaceful resolution to this crisis. I hope this video helped you understand a little better the situation in Sudan. Please share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like this video.